Is there somewhere in this life that you just needed to be? Or where do you really absolutely not want to be? We're not talking about the lukewarm middle places. Note it, because next I'm going to give you my ideas of what you could have been in a past life if you chose that place. I'm going to make a number of suggestions. This is based on skyscanner.com, which is a place where they book flights to go to places, and they made a list of the 9 most popular destinations where people like to travel. And I'm going to add a 10th one because it's not on their list. And a girlfriend of mine really her whole life wanted to go to Australia. Have you wanted very much to go to Australia or not? One or the other, not lukewarm. Now, the 9th on the Skyscanner list is Iceland. You know, Iceland is the place with glaciers and hot springs and also volcanoes. It's a very amazing, dynamic kind of country. And it's also part of Scandinavia. 1.2 million people like to visit there every year. Now, number 8 on their list is Machu Picchu in Peru, which is a ruin high up in the mountains in Peru. There's archaeological exploration going on there, but Machu Picchu is also symbolic of a love of the west coast of South America and other types of ruins in South America. Say the Nazca lines are in South America. Now, number 7, which has visitors at the rate of 1.5 million a year, is Stonehenge in England. Those are those huge monolithic stones with the capstones on top of them. How did anyone ever get those stones up there? So next, number 6 on the line is Christ the Redeemer in Brazil. That is that amazing statue on the top of this huge bluff overlooking Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. The Christ there sort of blessing the country down below. It is breathtaking to see it in pictures. Is this a place you long to go? Number 5, the Acropolis in Athens, Greece. There's a number of ruins there, and probably the most beautiful is the Parthenon. It's that building with all the columns. Next is number 4, the Eiffel Tower in Paris, France. And 7 million people visit the Eiffel Tower every year. Number 3 is the Great Wall of China. 10 million people go to the Great Wall of China. Is there something totally intriguing for you, the need and desire to pursue more about China? And number 2 on the list, 14.7 million people visited there. I think this list was made in 2019. This is to the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. In the middle of a desert, people flock to the Great Pyramids. And do you know what number 1 on their list is? I was totally shocked, because if you watched my video on Harriet Tubman's dreams, she brought the slaves to safety to Canada. And I didn't realize I grew up in a town just very near to where Harriet Tubman lived for 10 years. In fact, it's where I went to university. The other thing that's really close to the town where I grew up in Canada is Niagara Falls. Number 1 on this list, 30 million people visit every year. You know, growing up there, if I had known that Niagara Falls was going to be this amazing famous place that people have to go to. I mean, why did I leave? Actually, I had one of my first jobs in Niagara Falls. The Seagram's Tower is now called the Conica Minolta Tower. It had a hot dog stand at the base of that tower, and there was ice cream served there as well. And I was one of the kids scooping out the ice cream out of those bins and making the hot dogs for the tourists. It was one of my first summer jobs there. Anyway, 30 million people, Niagara Falls. Okay, so there's my list of these really 10 places. And did any of it ring a bell with you? Note it, because next I'm going to give you my ideas of what you could have been in a past life if you chose that place. All right, so let's start with Australia. Australia did have an indigenous population, the Aboriginal people. And so in a past life, you might have been an Aboriginal person in Australia, or you might have been one of these transported criminals from England. Now, don't worry about having been a criminal. Some people were transported for stealing a loaf of bread because they were starving. So this was an enterprising group that went to Australia. Now, number 9, Iceland, the glaciers, the hot springs, the volcanoes, Scandinavia. If you chose Iceland, could you have been a Viking? Because the Vikings went to Iceland. And there's all this lore about the Vikings being these raping and plundering people, but recent research has shown that many of them brought their wives and families with them, and many of them were younger sons who did not stand to inherit the land. Their older brothers would inherit the land, so these younger sons had to go further afield to find land for themselves. So you might have been a Viking man or woman if you have this strong desire to be in Iceland. Now, Machu Picchu, Peru, that area of the world has a lot of a shamanic tradition. Is there a chance that in your past life you were a shaman or an apprentice? You could have also been a weaver of alpaca wood. Interestingly, the Nazca lines that I mentioned earlier, some people think that aliens made them. Maybe you're an alien, who knows? All right, Stonehenge in England. I was at Stonehenge. It's one of the places I had to be, and I loved it. And as far as past lives go, think of the very rich spiritual heritage in the United Kingdom. Think of the Druids, think of the fairies, think of the Knights of the Round Table. All of that comes from England. You might have also been a king or a queen, lived in a castle. All right, moving on from Stonehenge, Christ the Redeemer in Rio de Janeiro. So, if this is a place that really resonates with you, either plus or minus, could you in a past life had been a very devout Christian? Could you have been perhaps a native person working, fishing in the Amazon, um, having a life in the forest there? These are all possibilities if you feel drawn to being in Brazil. Then there's the Acropolis in Athens, Greece. I have a girlfriend who had to go there. And for her, it was a Christian religious experience because I didn't realize so much of Christianity started in Greece. Plus, many philosophers were in Greece. If this is somewhere that you have to be, that you have strong feelings for, you could have been a philosopher or could have been involved in the early Christian church. Now, next comes the Eiffel Tower in Paris, France. My first thought about France and Paris is, of course, the guillotine, because France was the place where the world changed. There was a revolution there, and that revolution spread to America, throughout the world. And you might have been an aristocrat who got their head cut off. You might have been a peasant who was finally going to get some power. I've been to France and I love it there. They also have all kinds of castles and tapestries. They have such a rich history. So if you feel drawn to the Eiffel Tower, to Paris, to France, Mont Saint Michel is a fantastic place to visit too. You might have been there in a past life. Now, what about the Great Wall of China? Oh, there's so much to do with China, from tea growing to, well, if you're a woman and you have trouble with your feet, say you don't want to go to China, it could be because you had been a rich woman in China and had your feet bound. And so you have very mixed feelings. You might love Chinese. Some of their clothes are really beautiful. Their decorations, their homes, their traditions. They have an amazing warriors in the past. If something in that country really, really appeals to you, there's a chance that you are involved with whatever that is in your past life. Now, number 2 on the list is the Great Pyramids. Just think of Egypt. Just think of the pharaohs. Think of all that jewelry. Think of the splendor of that time. It could be that you were involved with that if you are drawn to the Great Pyramids and to Egypt, that in your past life you were there. Now, maybe if you hate the thought of going to Egypt, you might have been a Jewish slave who escaped across the Red Sea. Who knows? But again, look at if you really, really want to be there, you might have had a very, very good experience there. Or if you absolutely don't want to be there, it might have been an unpleasant experience. Now, finally, is Niagara Falls, number 1. Now, if you have a desire to go to Niagara Falls, it could be that in a past life, you actually got married in Niagara Falls. I know my husband's grandparents had their honeymoon in Niagara Falls. That might be a past life you had where you went on your honeymoon to Niagara Falls. The other thing about Niagara Falls, having grown up there, we learned in school there is a mythology among the Native people. They're called First Nations people in Canada, Native Americans in the United States. And their tradition is that the people had to make a sacrifice over Niagara Falls of a young maiden, and the chief's daughter in this one story made the sacrifice. I don't remember the whole story. The only thing I remember as a kid when I heard that story is, oh my God, she's going to go over the falls and die. It was just terrible. So it could be, if you find Niagara Falls a destination, it could be that you have past life memories of having been a First Nations Native American person. And I have these wonderful images here from the time of the fur traders. They are by Frances Ann Hopkins. She was an artist in the 1860s. She was from Britain, and she came with her husband, who was part of the Hudson's Bay Company, which did a lot of fur trading with the native people. And she went with her husband in these birch bark canoes to the various outposts where they were trading with First Nations people. And she was an artist. She came from a family of artists. and she made these amazing paintings in these huge canoes. The interesting thing is she is almost always putting herself in the canoe because she went with her husband on these trips. You'll see her like in one picture, there's a small waterfall and this huge canoe is going by. And in the middle of the canoe, there is her with a hat with ribbons down her head, and her husband, he's wearing a hat too. And then the native people in front and back rowing or paddling. And another magnificent painting of hers is in a number of these canoes going through a fog in a very calm, very shallow water. You just see the back of her in that canoe with the ribbons hanging down from her hat. Just in case you think, oh, everything was just on these calm waters. Well, take a look. This is running the rapids where the canoe is just leaping over the rapids. And if you look closely in this picture between the Indians, there she is with her husband in that canoe. I hope you've enjoyed looking at where you could have lived in a past life. And I'm interested to know if you what you came up with. So, leave something, a comment down below. It's been nice talking to you about this stuff. It's very exciting for me to be able to share it with you. So, hope to see you again. Toodaloo. Bye bye.